Hi there, I'm Roland Henneckert from New Perspectives Coaching. And this is the second video about the 12 questions to help you find the perfect coach for you and your business. If you're not already watching this video on the 12 questions page on my website, follow the link that's on your screen now to go and watch the first video there if you like. Because in this, the second video, I want to go through the actual 12 questions with you and help you use them. So be sure to download the actual 12 questions sheet so you can go through them with me as you watch. So the first thing to think about when interviewing anyone for any position is how to get a real conversation going. A conversation in which the interviewee does most of the talking. After all, you want to find out what they're really like, what makes them tick, and you can't do that by talking at them, right? So to develop real conversations, we have to understand the difference between open and closed questions. A closed question is a question that can only be answered with very simple yes or no, black or white answers. Do you have experience working with small business owners? Have you owned your own business before? Do you know how to write a great business plan? They're all examples of closed questions. Only yes or no answers are possible in each case. When you ask closed questions, the answers will come back more or less instantaneously, and then the ball is immediately back in your court to ask the next question. Asking closed questions is actually hard work. It allows the interviewee to sit back and relax, and you won't learn much about the other person. Which is not to say that closed questions don't have their use. When you simply need to find out things such as, what is your name? Do you have a driver's license? Do you have an Australian work visa? Closed questions work really well, but to get a conversation going and to get in behind the obvious, you need to train yourself to avoid them at all cost. Here are some open versions of the 3 closed questions above. Instead of, do you have experience with, you can ask, tell me about your typical clients. Instead of, have you owned a business before, ask, what was it like owning your own business? And instead of, do you know how to, etc., you can ask, what are some of your thoughts about effective business planning? As you see, open questions invite the other person to talk, to share their thinking, to give you an insight into who they are. So the first thing to note about the 12 questions in the guide is that they're all open questions. They will lead to conversations with anyone but the most morose of coaches, and that in itself is probably good to know. But it also means you may not get an opportunity to ask all of the 12 questions in a single interview, because each question may lead to a 10-15 minute conversation or more. And that's fine. You don't need to ask all 12 questions. But what is important is that you ask at least one question from each of the 4 topic areas. And these are the 4 topic areas, and the first area to talk about is business experience. Because as I've said before, being in small business can be a lonely journey. If you've taken the step to find someone to walk beside you on that journey, they need to have been where you are. They need to know what it feels like to have the buck always stop with them. They need to know the feeling of having their own house on the line. A coach who hasn't owned his or her own business in the past will probably never really get you. The second area to ask about is overcoming challenges. And challenges are important for 2 reasons. First, being prepared to open up about past challenges in business is brave and authentic. You do not want people walking beside you on your journey in business who are blind to their own failings. Second, people who haven't experienced any significant challenges in their business are people you don't really want to work with anyway, because they're scary and you'll always feel inadequate around them. The third area to explore is business philosophy. There are many ways to skin a cat and many roads to Rome. You really want to make sure that you and your coach have the same basic beliefs and values about business, or you'll always clash with each other. The fourth area that you really want to find out about is the point of difference. And this is probably the key to the whole interview, because the conversation that follows from the questions in this topic area will tell you so much about the coach and how you guys will likely interact, work with each other over time. The most important thing you actually want to hear from the coach in this topic area is that he or she actually has a succinct, clear answer to these questions. If the coach gives you waffle or cliches and platitudes, I'd run a mile if I were you. So, I think the individual questions speak for themselves, really. Feel free to experiment with them to your heart's content, or contact me if you'd like to, brainstorm those questions further. But you may also want to ask some specific questions about specific topics that are relevant to your business and your circumstances. You may specifically want to hear about the coach's experience with managing finance and cash flow, or with quality assurance systems, or with engaging and motivating staff, or any others. Absolutely ask questions on these topics if they're important to you. And use the 12 question sheet as a template to create your questions from. But don't miss out on asking at least one question, as I said, in each of the 4 topic areas, and allow time to have a real conversation develop. There's 3 final things I want to mention. Prepare. Effective interviews with applicants of any type are those you take the time to prepare for. Don't think you're going to just wing it and do a good job, because you won't, and you won't thank yourself for winging it later down the track. Second is notes. Put aside some time after each interview to make notes. In my experience, it's best not to make notes during the conversation, because it gets in the way of being fully present, fully in the conversation and nowhere else. Better to have a notebook ready and make sure you have 20 minutes available immediately after each interview to write up your impressions. This is key, and it hangs together with the final point. Decide. The third. A lot of research has recently been published that our best decisions are actually made through intuition rather than weighing up lists of pros and cons. Science now confirms that gut feeling is more efficient and effective than we might have suspected even. But there's one proviso. Gut feeling is only trustworthy if it's founded on evidence, informed intuition, in other words. And what that means in the case of interviewing and selecting coaches is this. Remind yourself to keep an open mind all through the interview process. Be curious, observe, notice stuff, and be present. And then afterwards take extensive notes. And then, at the end of each interview, remind yourself that you're still not making any decisions yet. That still comes later. Because finally, once all interviews have been completed, you read over all your notes again, and then you put your notes down and away, and you simply allow your gut to decide. No rhyme nor reason, seemingly, just pick and trust your gut, but don't allow your gut that final say until you've done everything else that comes before it. That's it. That's how you select the perfect coach for you and your business. It's one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your business, so give it the time and attention it deserves. Your future self will thank you for doing so. I promise you. Cheers.